Welcome to my story channel. I'm Shamrock. My husband, the CEO of a group, thinks that women become corrupt when they get rich, and that's bad for family harmony. So every expense in the family has to go through him. The day my daughter was in the car accident, he refused to pay the $8,000 rescue fee and $5,000 medical fee. In the end, he didn't even want to pay the $1,000 funeral fee. His voice over the phone was cold and impatient. For the sake of money, he even cursed his own daughter, shameless. If I had known you cared so much about face and material things, I shouldn't have married you in the first place. At that moment, I looked out of the small window in the morgue and saw an interview being broadcast live on a big screen in the city center. My husband is the CEO of a conglomerate, and to celebrate the birthday of his first love's daughter, he had just spent a lot of money on the biggest and most magnificent fireworks display in town. Now the story officially begins. 7 days later, Ethan Green finally came home. As soon as he entered the house, he noticed that the whole place was bright as day, with all the lights on and even the candles lit. Seeing this, he immediately frowned and said angrily, "What are you doing? It's a waste of electricity to leave so many lights on at night. Can't you think before you act?" In the past, if Ethan Green had given me a lecture like this, I would have been so scared that I would have kept apologizing until he was satisfied. But now, faced with his familiar cold rebuke, my reaction was different. I gently touched the clay pot in my hand, thinking to myself, I just want to live better. Just because I don't want to spend money, you deliberately target me, right? Ethan Green completely failed to notice that I was different from before, and he was still angry, saying, "If I knew marrying someone like you was such a mistake, I would have divorced you a long time ago." I looked up at the man I had loved for many years and calmly said, "All these years have really been a waste for you." Ethan Green was stunned, his eyes wide open, as if he couldn't believe it. "What did you just say?" I took out the divorce agreement I had prepared long ago and handed it to him. Suddenly, the atmosphere became extremely heavy and uncomfortable. "Sophia Parker, when are you going to give up?" Ethan Green's face suddenly turned ugly, obviously very unhappy. When he saw my empty fingers, he sneered, as if mocking my performance. He first used his daughter as an excuse, and now he is threatening divorce. He is getting better and better, and was about to continue scolding me when the phone suddenly rang. His previously cold expression suddenly softened. "Okay, I'll be right there," he reassured the person on the other end of the line. "Don't worry, I'll take care of you and Sarah." I didn't need to guess, it must have been Emily White. Ethan Green was always gentle when it came to his first love. But no matter how many times I called and begged, he wouldn't even give Lily the money she needed. I clenched my fists and tried to suppress the anger in my heart. By now, Ethan Green was ready to go and keep Emily White and her mother company. He told her, "Turn off all the lights and be a good girl. Next month I'll give you more money for living expenses." Then he added, "Don't use Lily as an excuse to ask me for money anymore. You've really gone too far." It sounded like he was concerned, but the death certificate for Lily was sitting on the coffee table, and he didn't even glance at it. "Ethan Green, you're such a good father." I ignored Ethan Green and left the house brightly lit. I kept touching the stoneware jar in my hands. Today was the 7th day since Lily passed away. She was always afraid of the dark, so I wanted to light the way for her to come home. Lily was hit by a car 7 days ago, and her blood had flowed far away. When she was sent to the emergency room, her face was white and scared, and her eyes had no sparkle. I was outside, panicking, and kept calling Ethan Green, begging him to pay for Lily's treatment. But he refused every time and called me a liar. In the end, he refused to pay for Lily's funeral expenses. Seeing Lily's serious injuries, I suddenly felt a sense of emptiness in my heart. Despair was like a sharp knife stabbing into my heart. I knelt on the ground, my voice hoarse, crying out in pain. Feeling the pain come over me like a tidal wave, I desperately covered my ears, trying to block out the sound outside, but still the piercing sound got into my head. Outside the window, on a large screen in the city center, Ethan Green was being interviewed. He was wearing a suit and looked very energetic. Next to him were Emily White and her daughter Sarah White, both of them dressed up very nicely. To celebrate Sarah White's 7th birthday, Mr. Green had set off many fireworks in the city just to make her happy. When the three of them stood together, they looked like a happy family. Passers-by who saw this scene said enviously, "If I also had a father who loved his daughter so much, I would smile in my sleep at night. This is truly a happy family." Mr. Green's daughter will never have to face difficulties in her life. Although no one knows how rich Mr. Green is, he was unwilling to pay even a few $1,000s for his daughter's life-saving operation. My poor Lily was robbed of her last hope by this so-called biological father. I smiled bitterly as I took off the worthless plain ring on my hand and used it to pay the 800 yuan cremation fee. I took my daughter Lily home. Ethan Green probably doesn't even remember that I saved his life. It was a cold winter night when I came home and saw him about to jump into the river. I quickly took off my jacket and rushed in to pull him ashore. Although he was fine, I suffered frostbite and passed out from the high fever, and ended up in the hospital. Ethan Green woke up with red eyes and thanked me. I later learned that Ethan Green had just experienced the bankruptcy of his company. His girlfriend, with whom he had been in love for many years, had left with the money, leaving him with a lot of debt. After that, he stayed in the hospital to take care of me, saying that he wanted to repay me for saving his life. Gradually, the two of us came together. I gritted my teeth and insisted on starting over with him. That young man who had once been desperate, soon became the president of a group worth hundreds of millions of dollars. On the day we got our marriage certificate, Ethan Green made a request of me. He wanted to be in charge of all the family money. He said, "Honey, it's not that I don't trust you. It's just that I've had a bad experience before, so I'm a little worried." Seeing his vulnerable eyes, my heart softened. After all, we were already husband and wife and we should support each other. That's what I used to think. I never thought that just a year would pass so quickly. When I was pregnant with Lily and about to give birth, Emily White returned with her daughter. Seeing her shed a couple of sad tears, Ethan Green relented and gave her a supplementary card with no limit, so that she and her daughter could use it as they wished. But I, as his wife, even had to ask him carefully for money to buy nutritional supplements costing a few $100s. After a few times, Ethan Green became impatient. All he knew was to spend money. "Do I owe you money? Why can't you be more independent? It's not easy for me to make money." I really had no choice but to put up with this embarrassment. I had originally planned to divorce him after the baby was born. But then, after Lily was born, she was diagnosed with coagulation disorder, which means she can't be hurt in any way, and she needs a lot of medicine and professional treatment which costs money. So I had to give up on the idea of divorce. With Ethan Green around, I always had to be careful to please him and hope that he would be satisfied, so that Lily's treatment would not be affected. But the result of my patience was that I was getting more and more seriously hurt. In the end, Lily's life was also threatened. I was in tears, clutching the cold clay pot in my hands, and I couldn't help but let out a desperate cry. But I couldn't give up yet. I had to make that driver and Ethan Green pay for killing Lily. Early the next morning, I started rummaging through a pile of jewelry. These were all out-of-season goods that Ethan Green had asked me to take in before. Selling them would probably earn me about 100,000 yuan. This way I can hold a proper funeral for Lily. I hope that in her next life she can be healthy and safe, and meet someone who truly loves her. Just as I was crying and sorting things out, Ethan Green suddenly stormed into the room. Behind him were Emily White and her mother, both crying their eyes out. Before I knew it, he had grabbed me by the hair and dragged me to the ground. "Sophia Parker, look what your daughter has done. Tell that girl to come out and kneel down in front of Emily and Sarah and apologize." I endured the pain, frowned and said, "If you don't feel well, go see a doctor, but don't get angry." I looked up and saw Emily White and her daughter hiding behind Ethan Green, trembling with fear. She pointed at me and said, "Sophia Parker, please let my daughter and I go. Lily is bullying my Sarah. Sarah's only 6 years old and it almost got serious. You are also a mother. How can you be so heartless? Just because your daughter is human, should Sarah and I be looked down upon?" She couldn't stop the tears from flowing, like little white flowers swaying in the wind. "Ethan, I'm really scared. What if I wake up one day and Sarah's gone? If she gets hurt in any way, I don't want to live anymore." In the end, she stumbled and fell into Ethan Green's arms. Sarah White also burst into tears. Ethan Green gently embraced the mother and daughter, What a caring family. I stood there watching the whole thing, feeling really ridiculous. I really shouldn't let these people delay Lily's good opportunity. I didn't want to bother with it anymore and planned to leave. But then Ethan Green suddenly kicked me, and I fell down without any defense, and the clay pot I was holding fell to the ground. Ethan Green's face was gloomy, his body exuding a cold aura, and he said sternly, "Stop making excuses, the evidence is all there. Let the culprit come out and admit his fault." Then I had to watch a surveillance video. The video showed a girl who looked a lot like Lily pushing Sarah White into the pool without mercy. I almost laughed when I saw Sarah White struggling in the water, but I didn't show any expression on my face. In Ethan Green's opinion, my silence made him think I had something to hide. "Sophia Parker, why don't you continue to defend yourself?" He sneered, his tone even harsher, urging them to release the troublesome person quickly. "Don't even think about faking illness to avoid punishment. I've checked. She hasn't been sick in the last few days. Emily and Sarah are kind-hearted, so I must do them justice, and kneel here all day and night, or don't blame me for being rude." I turned around and looked at the mother and daughter. I bit my lip, tears welling up in my eyes. "You said Lily harmed your 6-year-old daughter, but Lily is only 5 years old. She looked so frail. How could she have the strength to push Sarah White, who was taller and stronger, into the water? Besides, the surveillance footage showed it 2 days ago, but my Lily was cremated a week ago. How could she have done it to Sarah White?" This lie had so many flaws that a little investigation would have revealed it. But Emily White and her mother just timidly wiped away their tears. Ethan Green actually believed them. He looked at me coldly, his eyes without the slightest bit of warmth. It was unbearable. "Now that there is evidence and witnesses, Sophia Parker, don't even think about denying it. Hurry up and get Lily Green out here so she can apologize to Emily and the others. It's been so tolerant of me to let this horrible person off the hook. What kind of father would say such a thing about his daughter? Lily is gone, and this humiliation will go on forever." With a pang in my heart, I smile in both pain and despair. "Ethan Green, you really should pay for this. Did you not even consider Lily your daughter? Sophia Parker, what are you saying, making it sound like Lily Green is already dead?" Ethan Green is getting more and more impatient. "Hurry up and let Lily Green out, so young and already so mean, causing people to die. It's all because of you. The family is not righteous, and the child follows suit and becomes bad." I looked at him coldly. "Are you happy that she will never come back? My Lily, forever stopped at the age of 5. Lily's life ended when her father ruthlessly refused the few $1,000s that could have saved her. Ethan Green, when you find out that you have killed your only daughter for the sake of others, will you still be as tough as you are now?" Looking at the gloomy man in front of me, I gave a bitter smile, took out the crumpled death certificate, threw it in his face, and said to him, "Oh, you still don't know Lily has passed away. You are so mean, you even let your own daughter lose the opportunity to live. Mr. Green, how does it feel to lose your own daughter?" Ethan Green was surprisingly calm when he heard the news that Lily had passed away. He first froze for a moment, frowned, then slowly relaxed and let out a soft hum. His expression didn't change at all, and he turned to show concern for Emily White and her daughter, even offering to have the doctor give Sarah White a detailed examination, worried that she might catch a cold after falling into the water. I was stunned, feeling that in Ethan Green's heart, Lily was like a complete stranger. No, even a stranger would have reacted better than him. Ethan Green used to care about Lily too. Suddenly my mind went blank, and anger and frustration welled up inside me, making me want to tear this cold-hearted man to pieces. "Ethan Green, you are so heartless." My tears kept flowing, my eyes red, as I stared at Ethan Green and shouted in a shrill voice, "It's my fault for not seeing your true face sooner. You're not worthy to be Lily's father." Ethan Green stood there with his head down, wanting to say something, but in the end, he closed his mouth. At this time, Emily White next to him suddenly spoke up. "Sophia Parker, I never thought that Lily would just leave like this, which is really regrettable. However, considering her physical condition, you should know better than to be too sad. Unfortunately, you are now getting old, and it may be too late for you to have another child." She gave a wicked smile, then pretended to be serious, pushed Sarah White in front of me and said, "Why don't you treat Sarah like your own daughter? She will take care of you in place of Lily Green. Sarah White is still a healthy and well-behaved child. In that way you really got a bargain. The rationality in my head was like a tight string that snapped. She was nothing more than an executioner who had taken away the love of a father for my daughter. Now she wants to take my daughter's place? She's so naive. I was so angry that I wanted to avenge my Lily at that moment. My Lily is very understanding. When she was about to leave, she tried her best to comfort me by smiling to make me not feel sad. She definitely didn't want a mother with blood on her hands. So I lost control, grabbed Emily White by the collar and slapped her mercilessly. I'm sorry I couldn't do it. In the past, no matter how cold Ethan Green was to me or Lily, I didn't bother Emily White and her daughter. I always felt that in this relationship and in this family, Ethan Green was the one who changed his mind first. Even if it wasn't Emily White, there might be other women in the future. All in all, Ethan Green was wrong. I don't want to fight with someone like a crazy person, but I was wrong. Some people just make people feel uncomfortable. I felt particularly bad when I thought about Lily's pale face on her deathbed. I pressed my whole body against Emily White and slapped her mercilessly. Sophia Parker, what are you doing? Stop it. Ethan Green finally reacted, his face turning ugly as he tried to get up and stop me, but I roughly scratched a few red marks on him. It wasn't long before Sarah White grabbed my arm in tears, and I rudely grabbed her head and pushed her aside. Ethan Green was right, I really had gone crazy. Ever since Lily died, I had completely broken down. I had also sustained many injuries, my face was covered in bloodstains, and I had lost a lot of hair. But I didn't care about any of that, I just fought with them like crazy. They had no idea how much pain I was in. A mother who has no weaknesses must be very brave, not afraid of anything. The sound of the fight woke up the neighbors, who quickly called the police. When the police arrived, they took us all to the police station. As soon as we entered the room, Emily White shouted that she was suing me for hitting her. I touched the redness on my face and smiled softly, not at all flustered. Although this title didn't quite match my actual situation, I still bore the title of Mrs. Green. It was true. When Emily White shouted that she was going to send me to jail, Ethan Green's face changed noticeably. It wasn't long before he dragged Emily White out. When they returned, Ethan Green looked calm, while Emily White's face had an expression of reluctance. Despite this, she was still unwilling to give up, and ran up to me to provoke me, saying that Ethan had promised to give her a 30 million yuan crystal necklace. She also mocked me, saying, Sophia Parker, you are such a shabby Mrs. Green. Humph, if it weren't for Ethan's company and reputation, I wouldn't let you off the hook. She felt generous and decided to let me off the hook. But from the moment I entered the police station, I had no intention of letting her off the hook. Police, I want to sue Emily White for violating my reputation. My daughter Lily Green died 7 days ago, but she took out the surveillance and groundlessly accused my daughter of hurting her child. When I said this out of anger, everyone in the room focused on Emily White. Emily White immediately looked panicked. Yes, my Lily is gone. So 2 days ago there was no way she could have hurt anyone. Emily White deliberately pretended to fall into the water to frame Lily. This person is so bad, even harming a child. I didn't expect this either, but the surveillance footage shows everything. Emily White looked very panicked, and although she kept saying she was innocent, her stammering gave her away. However, when she looked at Ethan Green with her moist eyes, his heart softened again. He avoided my gaze and pretended to be calm, saying, Comrade policeman, you've got it all wrong. My wife is emotionally unstable because of her daughter's death. He said that everything she said was fantasy, and not to believe her. After saying this, Emily White finally let out a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, I stared straight at Ethan Green. He was sweating, his face pale, and he didn't dare to look at me. I grinned and my tears almost came out. Ethan Green, every time I think you've gone too far, you can always manage to disappoint me even more. Sometimes I really want to impulsively hurt you and see what's really going on in your heart. What bad luck to meet such a terrible person as you, and to make Lily have to have a father like you. I regret that I should have meddled and saved you. I should have let you sink and no one would have known where you were. Ethan Green stood silently, not saying a word. The atmosphere in the room became awkward. Just then a police officer who looked a bit familiar suddenly came in through the door and walked up to me and asked, You are the mother of the victim in the previous intersection accident, right? Great, we have found some clues and will soon catch the suspect who hurt your daughter. At that moment I was a little excited. Suddenly I felt dizzy and almost fell. These past few days have been a blur, like walking as a zombie. But I heard some good news. They found a clue and will soon catch Lily's killer. I tried to muster my strength and walked towards the room where the evidence was stored, ignoring Ethan Green behind me. Emily White's mother looked very nervous, and the surroundings had become very chaotic. The young policeman who had brought the good news told me that the workers repairing the place where Lily had been involved had mistaken the cables, and as a result, all the street cameras had broken down. They had originally thought that they would not be able to find any evidence. But then there was a twist in the story. The dashcam of a parked car had captured the whole thing. Miss Parker, don't worry, the evidence is right here and it won't be lost. Seeing that I was exhausted, the policewoman next to me quickly gave me a hand. I told her seriously that I was fine and could still persevere. The murderer who killed Lily had not yet been caught, and I would definitely persevere and do my best. Just then the skinny figure suddenly appeared in the dashcam, and I couldn't hold back my tears. Lily, my Lily. That day, I was taking Lily to the hospital for a follow-up examination. But when we got there I suddenly fainted because I was so tired. Lily was so distressed when she saw me like that. Later, the doctor said I was a bit malnourished, so I thought about sneaking out of the hospital and going to the store across the street to buy some biscuits to supplement my nutrition. There weren't many people on the road at noon, and my Lily was very obedient and obeyed the traffic rules. But then on the zebra crossing, she was hit by a Rolls-Royce and thrown several meters into the air. There was blood all over the ground. My heart sank. I had a bad feeling about this, but when I saw Lily lying on the ground like a rag doll, I couldn't help but break down. I wanted to rush into the picture and take Lily's place. She was my precious baby, the child I had raised with so much love and care. But I quickly fell into sadness, because I recognized the Rolls-Royce Phantom at first glance. There was only one person in the whole city who had that car. Ethan Green. As soon as I turned around, I saw Ethan Green staring at the screen with wide eyes and a confused expression. Then, as if he had thought of something, he suddenly turned his head and looked at the trembling Emily White and her daughter in the corner. In a moment, I understood what was going on. The recorded footage on the screen had not finished playing. As soon as the window opened, the faces of Emily White and her daughter appeared. The daughter hurriedly said, "Mom, I think I hit someone. What bad luck. Let's drive away quickly and not delay Mr. Green's birthday banquet for you." Emily White coldly replied, "What's there to hesitate about? It's just a dead person." There was silence all around, and Emily White's words sounded even more ruthless. "Baby, you're only 6 years old. Even if something really happens, you don't have to be responsible. Even if things get really bad, Mr. Green has money and can always fix it." So they hurriedly left, not caring about the faint cries for help under the tires. And so, once again, they ruthlessly ran over my Lily. It wasn't until half an hour later that I received the bad news that Lily had been rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. I felt unbearable pain. I closed my eyes in agony, feeling like I couldn't hold on much longer. Then I turned around and slapped Emily White a few times. The police officers hurried over to stop me. After half an hour of struggling, everyone finally managed to rescue Emily White from me. Emily White did have a point. Her daughter Sarah White was young, so even if she killed my Lily, there would be no consequences. But she forgot that she was also driving the car. As an adult, she failed to leave the police station and was taken into custody directly. Without thinking, I immediately hired a famous lawyer. During the rescue, the doctor said more than once that if she had been brought in earlier, she might have been saved. But Emily White clearly saw that Lily was still alive, but she didn't even try to save her. She killed my Lily, so I want her to go with my Lily. At the same time, I also hired the best Taoist priest in the city to perform a funeral service for my Lily. When the small ceramic pot was buried in the ground, I didn't shed a tear for the first time. I bent down and gently stroked the newly erected tombstone, and I silently told Lily in my heart, "Don't worry, Mom will avenge you." Just as I was about to leave, I ran into Ethan Green. He was carrying a beautiful fruit basket and looked very tired. I said coldly to him, Don't come any closer. Lily doesn't want to see you. Ethan Green's face showed signs of pain as he said, Sophia Parker, I know you're not feeling well, but Lily is my child after all. I sneered, now you admit that Lily is your child. But before you called her an evil seed. I continued to mock him, and Ethan Green seemed to be unable to stand it anymore. But he couldn't help but say, Sophia Parker, I want to discuss something with you. I coldly interrupted him, if you want me to write a letter of understanding, then don't say anything. I had already heard about Ethan Green's bad thoughts from my lawyer. As an excellent lawyer with more than 20 years of experience, she couldn't help but swear on the phone, saying that she had never seen such a bad father before, and that he was simply irresponsible. It was really hard to understand why he would even want to ask for a letter of understanding from the murderer of his own daughter. However, I was not surprised by Ethan Green's feelings. The moment he cheated on me, I decided to leave. In the following years, we were still together, but mainly for Lily's treatment. I had long seen through his weakness. At first, he said so resolutely that he hated Emily White for betraying him, but in the end he couldn't resist and ended up with someone else. Ethan Green still refused to give up. He said to Sophia Parker, I know Lily's death made you feel sad, but Sarah is also innocent. She did something wrong, but she lost her mother when she was so young. Can you really bear it? You are also a mother. Why can't you be more compassionate and gentle? I no longer feel anything when I accuse Ethan Green. I looked at the fruit box he had prepared and said with a smile, Ethan Green, why are you lecturing me again? Lily was allergic to mangoes, but you sent a whole box of them. Don't you want her to suffer? Stop it. I spent a lot of money hiring a gravekeeper to keep Ethan Green away from Lily's grave. He left with his head down, looking dejected. Ethan Green, Ethan Green. You didn't think I would let Emily White and her mother off the hook, and you were naive enough to think I would make your life easy. I have to say, the title of Mrs. Ethan Green really came in handy. While Ethan Green was busy dealing with the mother and daughter, I participated in a popular live broadcast, publicly announcing the death of my daughter and revealing that Ethan Green's so-called sweet romance with Emily White was actually an ignominious relationship between a scumbag and his mistress. Time and time again, Ethan Green had ignored his sick child in favor of his first love and his first love's daughter. He spent money lavishly on his mistress, but refused to pay even a few $1,000s for his own daughter's emergency treatment. In order to protect his first love, he didn't care about his daughter's tragic death. These actions caused a heated discussion on the live broadcast platform. Tens of millions of netizens flooded the live broadcast room, almost crashing the platform. Soon they occupied the top spot on the hot search list. Every time the page was refreshed, there were thousands of accusations and insults against Ethan Green and Emily White. Half a month ago, in order to please Emily White and her mother, Ethan Green spent tens of millions of dollars to host a grand fireworks display. Now the backlash was fierce. It wasn't long before Ethan Green was in prison with Emily White and her mother. His company was in trouble for tax evasion, employee exploitation and labor law violations, each of which could land him in deep trouble. In fact, I had actually told his competitors about these secrets. An enemy's enemy is a friend. I had worked with Ethan Green to rebuild Green's group, but now I had helped bring it down. This was what he got for betraying me. He deserved it. Later, I went to prison once. Success and Ethan Green have divorced. Before leaving, I handed him a paternity report with a smile and said, "You've always been worried about where Sarah White is, haven't you? Don't worry, she's been picked up by her real father." I particularly emphasized the words real father. First, Ethan Green could hold back. Later, when he saw that the report stated that he was not Sarah White's biological father, he completely broke down, started shouting and struggling desperately. Then he was hit with a stun gun a few times and dragged away like a wounded wild dog. I understand the whole story. A few years ago, Ethan Green had a serious illness and lost his fertility as a result. He always thought he only had one child, Lily, so he was especially caring and loving towards her. Later, Emily White told him that Sarah White was actually their child, but Sarah White was in poor health and had coagulation disease. Ethan Green's mood certainly fluctuated after learning this. So when he heard the news that Lily had died, he didn't feel sad, because he still had a daughter. However, this daughter was actually a lie made up by Emily White for money. Now, for the sake of a stranger, she had even caused the death of her own biological daughter. Ethan Green, this is my gift to you. You must cherish it. As for Sarah White, her biological father has always favored boys, and her youngest son, who he especially dotes on, was recently diagnosed with kidney failure. She will definitely have a hard time in the future, and will encounter many things. She slowly walked towards Lily's grave with a fruit knife in her hand. In the end, I got revenge for her, but I really couldn't hold on anymore, especially during those days when Lily was gone. I hated myself countless times. If I hadn't fainted from weakness and failed to protect Lily, she probably wouldn't have died. Now everyone who hurt her has been punished as they deserve. As her mother, it's time for me to go join her. When I arrived at Lily's grave, I found a group of strangers paying their respects to her. I froze for a moment, then remembered something from the past. Lily was a smart girl who didn't feel well very often, so she especially treasured life. She was more willing to help others with whatever she could. 6 months ago, when she learned about organ donation, she threw herself into my arms and said coquettishly, "Mom, I also want to become a useful person who can help others." So when she was rolled out of the resuscitation room, pale and lifeless, I felt especially bad. Although I was reluctant to do so, I still donated some of Lily's organs according to her previous wishes. The people standing in front of me now are all people who have regained their lives thanks to Lily's help. Auntie, I really thank you and your daughter very much for giving us a new life. We will cherish it. You must take care of your health too. We will take care of ourselves, and Lily will be watching over us from heaven. Everything is fine. With everyone's comfort, I could not stop the tears from flowing. I couldn't help but look at the photo on the tombstone next to me. Suddenly, it seemed as if I saw Lily running towards me with a sweet smile on her face, saying, "Mom, in my next life, I'll buy you cookies again." Translated with www.deepl.com/translator free version.